My question is to the Attorney-General and asks, why has he refused to provide funding to the earthquake victims' families who want legal representation at the Royal Commission of Inquiry?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
The government has decided not to fund legal representation because the Royal Commission is taking a very comprehensive approach to ensure that families are engaged with the inquiry, and the Royal Commission has been resourced appropriately for that engagement. Council assisting the Royal Commission are ensuring the families' interests are fairly represented and are taken into account. The Commission has engaged a families liaison person who's doing very good work, and in addition, Commission Chair Justice Mark Cooper has met personally with victims' families at their request. The Government is determined to find the cause of the building failures which caused this tragedy in Canterbury, and that's why it has constituted a Royal Commission of Inquiry, the highest level, independent, fact-finding body that there is.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Supplementary. Given that the government did the right thing in providing legal representation to the Pike River families, can the Minister confirm that the circumstances which confront both the Pike River families and the Christchurch Quake families are precisely the same, in that 1, each group lost loved ones in tragic circumstances, 2, each has point of order, sir.
Point of order, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
With respect, no interjections are allowed, sir, but this is a rather serious issue, and I would have thought it should be dealt with in that way.
The initial interjections weren't actually weren't that intrusive, and the member chose to stop. I'd ask members, though, to be reasonable. This is a serious question. The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove. The member may start his question.
To the Attorney-General. Given that...
But I'd ask the member to carry on, please.
Given that the government did the right thing in providing legal representation to the Pike River families, can the Minister confirm that the circumstances which confronted both the Pike River families and the Christchurch Quake families are precisely the same, in that 1, each group lost loved ones in tragic circumstances, 2, each has a strong desire to find out how and why this occurred, 3, each wants a robust inquiry directed at establishing effective and meaningful preventative measures. 4, each wants direct involvement in the inquiry with the aid of independent counsel of their choosing. And if he argues that the circumstances are not the same, could he advise the House precisely what the distinction is in respect of each tragedy that compelled the government to treat the respective family groups differently?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Let me make it clear that I fully understand and accept the way this tragedy has affected the lives of those who were unfortunate enough to experience the death of friends and loved ones. Each Royal Commission does deal, however, with particular circumstances, and I think, for the member's benefit, I could say this, a closer analogy to the kind of commission of inquiry that we're engaged with in the case of the Canterbury earthquakes is the 2009 Royal Commission into the Victorian bushfires, where the kind of arrangements for engagement with the Royal Commission were the same there as are proposed here. But I certainly don't seek to diminish the extent of the tragedy and its effects on those poor families.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
To the Attorney-General, if the victims' families don't require independent legal representation because Royal Commissions of Inquiry are, quote, inquisitorial in nature, unquote, and, quote, engaged in fact-finding, unquote, as he said in a letter to the Quake families, why then has he provided legal representation to Pike River victim families for their Royal Commission?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Because as I've said in both answers already given, it depends on the particular circumstances, and the better analogy here is not Pike River, it is the Victorian Royal Commission, where Council assisting the Commission liaised with families in order to assist those families through that particular process.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
To the Attorney-General, given he said last year that, quote, We recognise the importance of families of the Pike River victims being represented and participating in the Royal Commission of Inquiry and will move to see that happens, unquote. Does that mean he doesn't recognise the importance of earthquake victims' families being independently, not with council assisting the Commission, but independently represented in this Royal Commission of Inquiry?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
I certainly recognise the need for those families to be heard by the Royal Commission, and that is exactly why Justice Mark Cooper and the other commissioners have personally met with them, and why there is that liaison person who, as I said, is doing very good work, who is keeping in constant contact with them, and council assisting the Commission will be representing them, and I believe that it's that combination of matters that will ensure that these poor people do have the chance to make their submissions to the Royal Commission.
Question number 9, Dr. Cam Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Corrections. What is the